The signal went out like a wound torn open across the galaxy. Ambassador Kira Velthana stood in the high crystal tower of Sanctuary Prime's communications hub. The tower was alive with light, its walls glowing faintly with the hum of energy flowing through crystalline conduits. Her hands, long, delicate, almost translucent in the cold glow, pressed against the panel. She could feel the pulse of the machine carrying her words outward, scattering them like desperate seeds into the void. "To all peoples of the galaxy," she said. Her voice wavered once, then steadied. "This is Sanctuary Prime. We need help. The Korak Dominion will be here in 3 days. We have no weapons. We have no army. We are farmers. We are teachers. We are families who only wish to live. Please, someone help us." Her silver eyes burned with tears she refused to shed. There was no time to cry. Crying would not stop the warships. Beyond the tall window, her world stretched outward in fragile beauty. Twin moons hung in the lavender sky. Towers of shining crystal reflected starlight like spears of frozen rain. Gardens hung from balconies. Singing fountains echoed in the courtyards. The Zelani people below carried on with their lives, children running between schools, couples walking hand in hand, traders offering fruits in the open air. They did not know death was coming. Kira had not told them. What good would panic do? Let them have these last 3 days in peace. Let them laugh and love before the shadows came. The responses to her message came quickly, too quickly. The proud Alaran Republic sent words that dripped with sympathy but carried no substance. "We cannot risk war," they said. "Our fleets must protect our borders." The Vex Confederation claimed their distance was too great. "By the time our ships arrive," they lied, "your world will already be ash." The Crystalline Alliance promised to hold a council vote. Votes took weeks. Sanctuary had days. Every great power knew the truth. The Korak Dominion crushed all resistance. Their fleets burned cities until nothing remained but glass. Their soldiers enslaved those who survived. They saw organic life not as equal civilizations, but as resources to be harvested. One by one, the galaxy turned away. Ambassador Velthana sank into her chair, her voice a whisper meant only for herself. "I have failed them. My people will die because I could not save them." She had begged, she had promised trade, wealth, cooperation, anything. None of it mattered. Fear ruled the galaxy, and fear always bowed before the Korak Dominion. Far away on the edge of human space, Captain Jake Morrison sat in the command chair of the UES Liberty, sipping black coffee from a chipped mug. His ship was not much, an exploration vessel built for long voyages. The Liberty carried basic weapons, modest shields, and a stubborn crew. They mapped stars, cataloged worlds, and looked for habitable planets. It was not a warship. "Captain," said Lieutenant Lisa Carter, fresh from the academy, her brown eyes sharp with curiosity. "We're receiving a wideband transmission. It's everywhere, multiple frequencies, all repeating the same thing. Looks like a distress signal." Morrison set his mug down. "Let's hear it." The bridge filled with the soft, melodic voice of an alien woman. It was the voice of Kira Velthana, carried across the stars. They listened in silence as she pleaded for help. The crew gathered close, drawn by the emotion in her words, the weight of a world begging strangers to save them. When the message ended, the bridge was quiet. "That's a hell of a thing," Morrison muttered. Bobby Martinez, the navigator, cleared his throat. "Signal traces back to the Sanctuary system. That's about 40 hours away, max burn." "But Captain," Lisa said, frowning, "it's not just one ship they're facing. The message said fleet. The Korak are sending an entire armada." Morrison stood, walking toward the main screen where the stars shimmered, distant and indifferent. Somewhere out there, a peaceful world was waiting to die. "Lisa, send a copy of the message to Earth Command. Flag it Priority 1. Bobby, plot a course for Sanctuary Prime, maximum speed." The crew exchanged nervous glances. They were explorers, not soldiers. Their ship was not built to fight fleets, but Morrison's voice carried a steady fire. "I know this isn't what we signed up for," he said, turning to face them. "We came out here to explore, to discover, but sometimes you don't get to choose the fight. Sometimes it finds you. Those people out there, they've got no weapons, no defenses. If we don't go, nobody else will, so we're going." For a moment, silence held the bridge, then Lisa Carter nodded. "You heard the captain. Let's go save some aliens." The Liberty turned its nose toward the stars and leapt to faster-than-light speed. Behind them, Morrison's report streaked back to Earth at the speed of light, carrying grim news. a crisis 40 light-years away. On Earth, Admiral Frank Sullivan was enjoying a rare, quiet dinner with his wife in the Colorado mountains when the emergency transmission arrived. The words of Ambassador Velthana played across his screen, followed by Morrison's report. He read it twice. Then he pushed away his half-eaten meal and summoned the Defense Council. Within the hour, the most powerful leaders of human space gathered deep underground. "Ladies and gentlemen," Sullivan said, standing before a holographic star map, "we have a problem. The Korak Dominion is preparing to wipe out a peaceful world. Captain Morrison and his crew are already en route, but one ship cannot stop a fleet." General Patricia Hayes, commander of the Space Marines, leaned forward. "How many ships can the Korak bring?" "Intelligence estimates at least 200, maybe more. They've been building toward this for months." "And how many ships can we field in range of Sanctuary Prime?" asked Secretary of Defense Carl Johnson. Sullivan hesitated. 23. The room fell silent. "Most of them," Sullivan admitted, "are cargo haulers, survey ships, orbital tugs. We have 3 real warships within striking distance, against 200. "That's suicide," General Hayes said flatly. "With respect, Admiral, we can't save everyone. Humanity is still new to the stars. If we throw away our fleet on a hopeless fight, who will protect Earth?" The logic was perfect, cold, reasonable, survivalist. But Sullivan remembered the voice in that transmission. The alien woman's silver eyes shining with unshed tears as she begged the galaxy for help. "You're right," he said softly. "It's hopeless. The smart play is to stay home, protect Earth, and hope the monsters stop after Sanctuary. That's what every other species in the galaxy has decided." He turned to the window overlooking the dark mountains. "But I didn't join this service to make smart plays. I joined to protect people, and right now, people are about to die." When he faced the council again, his eyes were hard as iron. "I'm authorizing Operation Guardian Angel. Every available ship is to respond to Sanctuary Prime. We may be 23 ships against 200, but we are going. We'll show the galaxy what humans do when innocent people call for help." "Admiral," Johnson warned, "if we lose the fleet, Earth will be defenseless." "Maybe," Sullivan said. "But if we don't go, then we've already lost, because we'll know we could have saved millions and chose not to." Orders spread like wildfire. Across human space, cargo captains dumped their loads. Surveyors abandoned their missions. Even orbital tugs left their stations. Every ship that could fly turned its engines toward Sanctuary Prime. It was not much of a fleet, but it was human, and when someone cried for help, humans answered. The race had begun. 40 hours until the Korak arrived. 40 hours to save a world no one else believed was worth saving. The human fleet arrived at Sanctuary Prime like a swarm of mismatched toys. Admiral Frank Sullivan stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant, humanity's largest warship in the region, and surveyed the ragtag collection of vessels assembling around the blue-green world. Cargo haulers reinforced with crude armor plates. Survey ships with mining charges strapped into cargo bays. Orbital tugs bristling with improvised missile pods. Only 3 ships, including the Defiant, could be called true warships. 23 vessels in total, against 200. "Sir," said Commander Nancy White, his communications officer, "the Zelani ambassador is requesting permission to board." Sullivan nodded. "Send a shuttle. Make sure the translator module is calibrated. We need no misunderstandings." Minutes later, Ambassador Kira Velthana stepped onto a human warship for the first time in her life. She was tall and elegant, her pale blue skin shimmering faintly under the Defiant's harsh lighting. Her silver eyes scanned everything with a mix of fear and wonder. Captain Jake Morrison met her at the airlock, uniform jacket burned at the shoulder from a minor reactor mishap during their frantic jump. He looked tired, unshaven, but steady. "Welcome aboard, Ambassador," Morrison said, extending a calloused hand. "I'm Captain Morrison, UES Liberty. We heard your call." Kira blinked at his hand, then remembered the human custom. She took it gently. His grip was firm, grounding. "You came," she whispered. "When we sent our message, we never believed anyone would answer." "Answering is what we do," Morrison said simply. She followed him to the bridge, where Admiral Sullivan awaited. The human command center was a stark contrast to Zelani elegance. Heavy steel, thick glass, glowing screens. Humans built their ships like fortresses. The officers moved briskly between stations, voices sharp, purposeful. It looked like chaos to her eyes, yet beneath it was a hidden order like music in a strange rhythm. "Ambassador," Sullivan said, rising to greet her, "this is humanity's answer to your call, 23 ships." Kira's heart dropped, 23 against 200. "I wish we had more," Sullivan admitted, "but it's what we could scrape together on short notice." Tears welled in her eyes. "Why would you risk your lives for strangers? You barely know us, we cannot repay you." The Admiral's weathered face softened. "Ambassador, where I come from, when someone asks for help and you can give it, you give it. Simple as that." The briefing room was tense. Officers crowded around the holodable, where the sanctuary system glowed in miniature. The asteroid belt shimmered red, encircling the world like a jagged crown. "Scouts report the Korak fleet will arrive in 18 hours, said Commander Rick Davis, tactical officer. 212 ships, mostly heavy cruisers and battleships. They're built for bombardment and planetary assault. "Ambassador," asked Dr. Amy Chen, xenobiologist of the fleet, "your world's asteroid rings, how dense are they? And your magnetic readings, they're unusually high." "The rings are thick," Kira admitted. "Most captains avoid them, too dangerous to navigate, and yes, our magnetic field is stronger than normal. Why?" Amy smiled faintly. "Because those hazards might be our advantage. Humans are used to flying through dangerous skis. Earth has asteroid belts, radiation storms, you name it. The Korak expect an open battle, but we won't give them one." Commander Davis expanded the hologram. "Here's the plan. We divide into small groups, hide among the asteroids, and strike from cover. We'll cripple them one ship at a time. Ambush tactics, hit and run." Kira stared at the glowing simulation. "This plan, it is madness. Flying at such speeds through the rings, fighting in close range where their weapons will devastate you. Your ships will be slaughtered." Admiral Sullivan's eyes were cold, resolute. "Yes, Ambassador, some of us will, but if we face them in open space, all of us will die. This way, we at least have a chance." Lieutenant Commander Ben Rodriguez leaned against the wall, arms folded, a grin tugging at his lips. His ship, the UES Razor, was the fastest of the fleet. A small, dart-like craft built for planetary survey. Now it would serve as the fleet's dagger. "Ambassador," Rodriguez said, "can your people evacuate the main cities? If this doesn't work, we'll need them underground, safe as possible." Kira's chest tightened. Even in planning their own deaths, these humans thought first of her people. "Yes," she whispered. "We have shelters. I will order the evacuations." Captain Sandra Lewis, commander of the cargo vessel Frontier, laughed suddenly. A short, sharp sound. Kira turned to her, startled. "Why are you laughing?" Kira asked. Lewis's eyes burned with fire. "Because where we come from, when bullies show up, you don't run, you stand. Even if you lose, otherwise they'll just keep going, world after world. Better to make your stand here." Kira swallowed hard. These humans were unlike any people she had ever met. Hours passed. Preparations filled every corridor. Engineers welded armor plates. Miners armed charges. Pilots ran simulations through asteroid mazes. On every ship, crew members wrote letters home they might never send. On Sanctuary Prime below, the truth finally spread. Fear gripped the cities, but it was matched by awe. For the first time, their people heard of strange aliens who had come across the stars to stand between them and death. Whispers of hope spread where panic might have reigned. In the asteroid belt, human ships took their positions. Tiny, fragile against the vast darkness, but purposeful, waiting. The countdown clock ticked down to hours. War Marshal Thex Corvin stood on the bridge of his flagship as the Korak fleet dropped from faster-than-light travel. 212 ships emerged like a swarm of dark insects, their hulls glinting with metallic sheen, weapons glowing. Corvin's smile was sharp as broken glass. Another conquest, another world to bend to the Dominion. "Marshal," said his tactical officer, "sensors show 23 ships hiding in the asteroid field, mostly small craft, primitive designs." Corvin laughed, a sound like stone grinding metal. 23? That is their defense. Send them a surrender demand. They may leave or die. Either way, the planet burns." On the Defiant, Commander White stiffened. "Admiral, incoming transmission. They demand immediate withdrawal or destruction." "Send our reply," Sullivan said calmly. "Tell them we decline their generous offer." The bridge erupted with low chuckles, nervous but fierce. Morrison stood at the rail, eyes on the tactical screen. He could feel it, the storm was seconds away. Admiral Davis said, "The Korak vanguard is moving, 50 cruisers inbound, weapons hot." "Signal the fleet," Sullivan ordered. His voice was steel. "Execute Alpha pattern. We're not here to fight fair. We're here to make them bleed for every inch." The first shot came like a sunbeam turned to murder. A massive energy lance ripped through the asteroid field, vaporizing a mountain-sized rock into glowing shards. It was a warning. But to the humans, it was also an answer. Now they knew the enemy's strength. "All ships," Sullivan said, "hold your nerve, let them come." The asteroid field glowed with silent fury as the Korak fleet advanced, weapons blazing. The asteroid field came alive with fire. Captain Jake Morrison gripped the Liberty's armrests as the ship lurched into its ambush run. "All guns, fire." The Liberty screamed out from behind a tumbling rock the size of a tower block, every cannon blazing. The human vessel's reinforced nose, designed to withstand asteroid strikes, cut a path through debris as weapons tore into the lead Korak cruiser. The alien ship's shields flared, a shimmering wall of crimson energy. They held. The Liberty's weapons were too small to kill a warship outright. But that wasn't the point. "Now, Ben," Morrison barked. From the shadows of another asteroid, the UES Razor exploded into motion. Lieutenant Commander Ben Rodriguez flew like a madman, weaving between spinning stone and deadly fire. His dart-like ship darted behind the cruiser, lasers burning through sensor arrays. The Korak vessel staggered, blind and confused. Its heavy guns fell silent, unsure of their targets. "Coming in hot," roared Captain Sandra Lewis over comms. Her lumbering cargo hauler, the Frontier, groaned into view. Improvised armor sparked under enemy fire as she pushed the vessel dangerously close. "Open the bay," Lewis ordered. Her crew obeyed, and a swarm of mining charges, designed to crack apart asteroids, streaked toward the crippled alien cruiser. They clamped onto its hull like angry insects, then detonated. The blast ripped through the cruiser in 3 places. Atmosphere vented in glowing streams. The ship spun, wounded and helpless. Cheers erupted across the human comm net. "First blood," Morrison shouted, pumping his fist. But the moment of triumph lasted only seconds. "Multiple contacts inbound," Commander Davis warned from the Defiant. "The rest of their vanguard is closing fast, 50 ships." The asteroid field lit with crimson beams. Rocks exploded into molten shards. Human ships scattered, weaving desperately through the deadly ballet. On the Korak flagship, War Marshal Thex Corvin snarled. "One of my cruisers crippled by miners and surveyors." He slammed a clawed hand against the armrest. "Impossible! Who are these vermin?" "Marshal," his intelligence officer said nervously, "the ship designs match a minor species. Humans. Records suggest they are primitive, a few dozen ships at most." "Humans," Corvin repeated, tasting the word with contempt. "I've never heard of them, and yet they dare." He pointed at the holographic map, voice rising to a roar. "Send in 2 squadrons, blast every rock in that belt. I want them annihilated." The Razor spun through the chaos, Rodriguez laughing wildly as crimson beams missed him by meters. "Ben, you're insane," his gunner shouted. "Damn right I am," Rodriguez yelled. He cut power, letting the ship drift between 2 colliding asteroids, then reignited engines to slingshot past a Korak destroyer. Lasers from the Razor stabbed into the destroyer's engines. The massive ship lurched, its thrust dying. "One more down," Rodriguez whooped. But not all fared as well. The UES Explorer, a converted survey vessel, took a direct hit. Shields flared, then collapsed. A crimson lance ripped through its hull, splitting the ship in half. Dozens of human lives vanished in a silent fireball. "Explorer is gone," Morrison whispered. His throat burned with rage. Seconds later, the Titan, a converted cargo ship, collided with a crippled Korak cruiser. Both vessels shattered in a blossom of fire and metal. Losses mounted. Humanity had drawn first blood, but the price was already unbearable. "Admiral," Commander White reported on the Defiant, "we've lost 2 ships. Enemy is adapting. They're coordinating volleys into the asteroid clusters." "Time for Phase 2, Sullivan said grimly. "Signal Magneto Protocol." Across the fleet, engineers scrambled. Metal cables, already rigged in secret, tightened around the largest asteroids. Engines roared, spinning the massive rocks like slings on titanic scales. Captain Rodriguez grinned as he saw the plan unfold. Oh, hell yes. Release, Sullivan ordered. The first asteroid, as large as a city block, launched forward like a cannonball. It slammed into a Korak cruiser with apocalyptic force. The alien vessel shattered, fragments scattering through its formation. Bullseye, someone shouted. More asteroids followed. The human fleet hurled spinning chunks of iron and rock at impossible velocities, turning the battlefield itself into a weapon. Korak formations collapsed in chaos. Another cruiser was split in half. Two destroyers collided trying to dodge debris. A battleship's bow crumpled under a glancing impact. On the flagship, Corvin stared in disbelief. They're using rocks as weapons? His voice dripped with fury. This is barbarism. But humanity paid in blood for every strike. The UES Compass caught a volley of plasma fire, its hull glowing white before disintegrating. The builder was ripped apart by concentrated beams. Morrison's chest tightened with every loss. His people were dying. Friends, voices he knew by name, gone in flashes of fire. We're down to 17 ships, Davis reported. Sullivan's face hardened, and they've lost 38. On Sanctuary Prime, Ambassador Kira Velthana watched the battle from the emergency command center. Giant screens showed fire streaking across her planet's skis as debris burned in atmosphere. The humans, they fight like demons, whispered one of her aides. Kira pressed her hands to her chest. Each explosion tore at her heart. These strangers were dying for her people, bleeding in the sky to protect lives they had never known. Tears ran down her pale cheeks. Please, don't let them all die, she whispered. On the Liberty, alarms wailed. Shields failing, Lisa Carter shouted. We can't take much more, Captain. Morrison's jaw clenched. The ship shook violently as debris struck the hull. Hold steady, he growled. We're not done yet. Another crimson beam grazed the Liberty's flank, tearing away plating. Fire spread through the corridor. Crew scrambled with extinguishers. Captain, Martinez yelled, we're inside their formation. Morrison's bloodied hands gripped the controls. Then let's make it count. He slammed the comm open. All ships prepare for close assault, we're going in. The human fleet, battered and burning, turned as one and charged. War Marshal Corvin's eyes widened. They're attacking with 15 ships. His officer nodded, pale with fear. Marshal, they're charging us head-on. Corvin snarled. Suicidal fools, all ships concentrate fire on the lead vessel, end this farce. The space between fleets erupted with crimson death. The Liberty led the charge. Energy beams lanced past, shaking the vessel to its core. Consoles sparked. Fires burned unchecked. Shields at 10%, Carter screamed. Hold course, Morrison shouted, blood running down his temple. The Liberty plowed forward like an arrow of iron and fury. The coded signal spread like wildfire across the human fleet. One word, simple and final, party. For every crewman it meant the same thing, close assault, boarding actions, fighting on the enemy's decks face to face, humanity's most dangerous battlefield. On the frontier, Captain Sandra Lewis stood amid sparks and smoke. Her cargo ship was barely holding together, armor ripped to shreds, but her voice carried unbroken fire. Boarding party go, move, move, move. Her crew opened the battered airlock. Across the void loomed a crippled Korak cruiser, hull burning, shields shattered. Sergeant Major Kate Williams led the charge. Marines in armored suits launched themselves across the gap, mag boots slamming into alien metal. Rifle barrels snapped upward, aimed at sealed doors. Breach, Williams roared. Charges detonated. The door blew inward. Marines poured through. The first Korak defenders appeared, tall, thin creatures, limbs too long, their scaled skin glinting like glass. They raised sleek energy rifles. The humans answered with gunfire. Projectile rounds ripped through Korak shields like paper, tearing into hollow bones and fragile organs. Aliens collapsed in screams, bodies unprepared for kinetic violence. Williams shoved forward, her rifle butt smashing into a Korak officer's chest. He flew backward like glass shattered by a hammer. Bridge secured, she barked minutes later, blood spattering her visor. These bastards can't fight up close. On the Defiant, Dr. Amy Chen pored over alien medical scans from the captured vessel. Her eyes widened. "Admiral," she said, "we've confirmed what I suspected. The Korak evolved on a clean, low-gravity world. Their immune systems are almost non-existent, just being in the same air as us is making them sick." Sullivan frowned, meaning, Admiral, humans carry a universe of microbes. To us they're harmless. To the Korak they're poison. The Admiral let that sink in. "So if our Marines get aboard—" Amy nodded grimly. "They'll win, not just with rifles, with biology." In the asteroid belt, the Razor danced like fire. Rodriguez whooped as he skimmed past another cruiser, so close its hull filled his entire viewport. "Target their engines," he shouted. Lasers stabbed into the cruiser's thrusters. The massive ship shuddered, propulsion dying. Rodriguez pulled hard, flipping through tumbling debris as crimson beams seared past. "Another fish gutted," he yelled. His gunner laughed hysterically, fear hidden under adrenaline. The Razor was too small and too fast. The Korak weapons, designed to crush cities, could not pin it down. Rodriguez fought like the void itself was his home. But the cost was staggering. The UES Titan was gone, the Explorer gone, the Compass, the Builder, all lost. The Liberty, Morrison's ship, burned in silence, half its decks destroyed. Inside, Morrison himself staggered through smoke, blood dripping into his eyes. Lisa Carter supported him, one arm around his waist. "Captain, we have to abandon ship," she begged. "No," Morrison rasped. His eyes burned with fury. "Not while I can still fight." Through shattered windows, he saw boarding pods streaking across the void, human pods slamming into alien hulls, Marines pouring inside like wolves into a sheepfold. "This isn't over," he whispered. On the Korak flagship, War Marshal Thex Corvin gripped his chair as alarms shrieked. His fleet was unraveling, 37 ships destroyed or crippled. And yet, they still outnumbered the humans 10-1. "Marshal," his tactical officer said, voice shaking, "reports from multiple cruisers, humans are boarding. They fight hand-to-hand, our troops." The officer hesitated, eyes wide. "They're losing." Corvin snarled. "Lies, no alien rabble could best Korak warriors." But then the images came, live feeds of humans smashing through blast doors, their rifles spitting projectiles. Korak soldiers collapsing, not just from wounds, but from sudden sickness, their bodies failing under exposure to alien microbes. "Marshal," whispered his officer, "they are demons, Deathworlders. They fight like nothing we've ever seen." On Sanctuary Prime, panic spread as the sky glowed with fire. Children screamed as burning debris streaked downward. Families huddled in shelters, clutching each other. Ambassador Kira Velthana stood in the command chamber, her silver eyes glued to the screens. She saw humans fight and die, strangers who had come for her people when no one else had. "Ambassador," an aide said, voice trembling, "messages are flooding in. Other species are watching the battle feeds, the Alaran Republic, the Vex Confederation, even the Crystalline Alliance. They're mobilizing fleets. They say humanity has shown the galaxy the Dominion can bleed." Kira's breath caught. Humanity was not only saving her people, they were inspiring rebellion across the stars. Back in the field, Captain Sandra Lewis guided the frontier with one hand, blood dripping down her arm, while her Marines commandeered the Korak cruiser they had captured. The alien vessel, its bridge secured, now fired on its own fleet. "Get that cannon operational," Lewis shouted. "If they're gonna bleed us, we'll make them bleed harder." Her crew cheered. The sight of a Korak ship turning its guns on its own formation broke enemy morale in pockets. But the humans were being bled dry. "Admiral," Commander White reported, "we're down to 15 ships." Sullivan's face was gray, lined with exhaustion. He had expected death, but not this much, not so fast. "Keep fighting," he said. His voice was low, almost broken. "As long as one ship stands, we fight." Inside the Liberty's ruined bridge, Morrison collapsed into his chair. The ship was dying. His crew scattered, wounded or dead. Fires burned uncontrolled. Lisa knelt beside him. "Captain, please, we can't hold." Morrison coughed blood, but his eyes still burned with that impossible human fire. "Remember why we came," he whispered. "Send the signal to Sullivan, tell him we'll hold the line." Lisa sent the message. Seconds later, the Liberty's engines flared for one final charge. The dying ship rammed full speed into the Korak flagship's communications tower. The collision tore both vessels open, the Liberty shattering into fire. On the Defiant, Sullivan received Morrison's last words. "Remember why we came." War Marshal Corvin reeled as his flagship staggered under the impact. Sparks rained from consoles. "Marshal," his officer screamed. "Communications down, fleet coordination lost." Across the Korak formation, captains scrambled, cut off from orders. Their tight formations unraveled into chaos. And humanity struck again. The void burned. Admiral Frank Sullivan stood on the Defiant's bridge, sweat streaking his face. His fleet was bleeding out. Of 23 ships, barely 15 still fought. Some clung to life by sparks and sheer will. But War Marshal Corvin's fleet, once invincible, was unraveling. Without their flagship's coordination, the Korak formations collapsed. What had been a perfect wall of fire became a disjointed storm, captains making their own choices, their discipline fraying. "Admiral," Commander White reported, "multiple Korak vessels are breaking formation. Some are retreating." Sullivan's eyes narrowed. "Retreating from us?" "Yes, sir, their comms are panicked. They're calling us death demons." A grim smile tugged at the Admiral's lips. Jake Morrison's sacrifice was working. On the frontier, Captain Sandra Lewis leaned against a scorched console, blood on her cheek. Her Marines had secured a Korak cruiser and turned its guns against its own kind. The alien warship's crimson beams tore into another Dominion destroyer, sending it spinning into the void. "Fire again," she ordered, voice hoarse. The captured ship obeyed. Another Korak vessel fell. The sight spread across the battlefield, human soldiers commanding enemy vessels, forcing them to fire on their brothers. The Dominion's morale cracked further. In the chaos, Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez danced the razor like a phantom. His ship skimmed close to a battleship, engines screaming, then darted beneath its belly to shred its thrusters. "Another fish gutted," Rodriguez laughed, sweat dripping into his eyes. "They can't pin us down." His gunner grinned wildly, loading fresh power cells. "They're too big, too slow. They don't know how to fight like this." But behind the grin was fear. Every maneuver carried death a hair's breadth away. Only madness or humanity could fly like this. On the ground below, Ambassador Kira Velthana stood in the emergency command chamber. The feeds showed fire across the sky, debris streaking like meteors. "Ambassador," her aide shouted. "Transmission traffic from across the galaxy. Other powers are responding, fleets mobilizing. The Alteran Republic has declared war on the Korak. The Vex Confederation is deploying ships. Even the Crystalline Alliance is pledging support." Kira's breath caught. "They're joining us." "Yes, they say the humans have proven the Dominion can be beaten." Hope surged through her chest. Humanity was not only defending her people, they were igniting rebellion across the stars. Back in the void, the battle raged with brutal intimacy. Sergeant Major Kate Williams led her Marines deeper into a captured Korak cruiser. The corridors reeked of smoke and alien blood. The alien soldiers fought desperately, but they were fragile, bones hollow, bodies weak. Worse, sickness spread through their ranks. Coughs racked them, their immune systems collapsing under exposure to human microbes. "Clear the bridge," Williams shouted. Her squad stormed forward, rifles barking. Aliens fell, shields useless against simple bullets. Moments later, Williams planted the Terran flag in the command chamber of a Korak warship. "Bridge secured," she radioed, her voice raw. "They're not built for close combat, Admiral, they're breaking." On the Defiant, Dr. Amy Chen burst into the command chamber, data tablet in hand. "Admiral, it's worse than we thought for them. The microbes in our breath, our sweat, even our skin, it's poison to them. They weren't ready for contact with true Deathworld biology. If we keep boarding, we'll spread sickness through their fleet like wildfire." Sullivan's weathered face hardened. "Then boarding actions continue. Use every advantage we have." White's hands trembled as she listened. The humans weren't just fighting. They were turning their very biology into a weapon. On the Korak flagship, War Marshal Corvin struggled to maintain composure. Sparks rained from the ceiling, smoke choking the air. His fleet was still numerically superior, but their discipline was gone. "Marshal," his officer said, panic in his voice, "we've lost 49 ships, dozens more disabled. Crews are refusing orders, some are retreating without permission." Corvin's claws dug into the armrest. Cowards, the humans are weak, primitive, we outnumber them 10-1. The officer hesitated. Marshal, they don't fight like any species we've faced. They board, they ram, they use rocks as weapons. Our crews say they're demons, that they can't be killed. Corvin's stomach turned, fear. His officers were afraid, he had never seen it before, and he realized with a shiver he was afraid too. The humans, though, were being cut to pieces. Admiral, White said quietly, we're down to 10 ships. Sullivan bowed his head for a heartbeat. 10 left, from 23, the rest gone, sacrificed in fire and steel. But then a cheer erupted from the comm net. Captain Lewis's voice came through, fierce as a war drum. 3 enemy ships under human control. Repeat, 3 captured Korak vessels now fight for us. On the tactical map, 3 red icons turned blue. They opened fire immediately, their massive guns crippling another Dominion battleship. The morale shift was seismic. If humans could capture Korak ships, who knew how many more would fall? Admiral, Dr. Chen's voice cut through. Reports from across the galaxy, this battle feed is spreading. Billions are watching. The Dominion's power was built on fear, but that fear is breaking. Other worlds are preparing to rise. Sullivan stared at the screen, where his ragged fleet fought like wolves among giants. Then we'll give them a show worth remembering. The Defiant shook violently, consoles burst into sparks. White was thrown from her chair. Direct hit, Davis shouted. Shields collapsing. Target their lead battleship, Sullivan barked. If we're going down, we're taking them with us. The Defiant's cannons roared, battering a Korak warship until it broke apart in fire. Sir, we can't take much more, Davis cried. Sullivan's jaw clenched. We hold the line. On the ground, Kira Velthana watched with trembling hands as names of fallen human ships scrolled across the feed. Liberty, Titan, Explorer, Compass, Builder. Her heart broke with every name. These humans had given their lives for her people, for strangers, and yet they were winning. Hope spread like wildfire through the shelters of Sanctuary Prime. The people, once resigned to death, now believed they might live. But in orbit, the humans were at the breaking point. Admiral, White whispered, her voice heavy, we're down to 8 ships. Sullivan closed his eyes. The cost was unbearable. Hundreds of human lives thrown into the fire. And yet the Korak had lost more than 50 ships. Their fleet was fractured, their morale shattered. They had never been bled like this. Still, the Admiral knew the truth. 8 against 150 was not survival. It was slaughter waiting to finish. The battlefield was fire. The asteroid belt was broken, shattered by the fury of 2 fleets. The void burned with wreckage, twisted hulls tumbling end over end. Human and Korak corpses drifted together in silence, the only distinction the shapes of their shattered armor. Admiral Frank Sullivan stood at the Defiant's command rail, watching his tactical map bleed red. Only 8 human ships remained, 8 against nearly 150 Korak. It should have been over. But humanity did not know how to quit. Admiral, Commander Nancy White said softly, our ships are barely holding. Engines crippled, shields gone. If we charge, it will be suicide. Sullivan's tired eyes hardened. Then it will be suicide with purpose. Signal the fleet. Final assault. No retreat. The comm net lit with acknowledgments. Ragged voices, some hoarse with smoke, others steady with grim resolve. Every captain knew what this meant. None wavered. Captain Sandra Lewis adjusted her headset on the frontier. Her cargo ship was cracked nearly in half, fires raging in the aft sections, but she smiled anyway. You heard the Admiral, people. Time to make it count. Strap in. Her surviving crew cheered, a sound equal parts defiance and grief. The frontier groaned as it turned, battered engines straining. On the Razor, Ben Rodriguez punched the console. His ship had taken hits, thrusters coughing, weapons overheating, but his grin remained. Hell yes, he muttered. One last ride. His gunner shook his head, a nervous laugh breaking through tears. You're insane, Ben. Yeah, Rodriguez replied, teeth flashing, but I'm human. The surviving fleet surged forward. 8 ships, explorers, haulers, a handful of warships, racing headlong into a wall of crimson death. The Korak fleet opened fire. Energy beams and plasma bolts turned the void into a storm of fire. Ships exploded in blossoms of light. The humans did not dodge. They dove deeper. The UES Harbinger, a survey vessel turned gunship, was obliterated in a single shot. But before dying, it rammed its last missile into the heart of a Korak cruiser, splitting it in half. The UES Atlas lost engines, spinning out of control. Its captain screamed over the comm, "For Earth! For Sanctuary!" before detonating the ship's core in the middle of a Korak formation. 3 enemy vessels vanished in the fireball. On the Defiant, consoles sparked as beams tore across its hull. "Admiral shields down to 5%, Davis shouted. "Keep firing," Sullivan roared. The Defiant's cannons blazed, tearing through an enemy destroyer. But the Admiral knew numbers alone would finish them soon. They could not win by killing ships one for one. They had to break the Korak's will. On the Korak flagship, War Marshal Thex Corvin bared his teeth as his fleet poured fire into the humans. Yet unease gnawed at him. "Marshal," his officer stammered, "reports from across the fleet crews are panicking. They say the humans don't fear death. They ram, they board, they fight even when destroyed." Corvin snarled, "They're primitives, keep firing." But his claws trembled on the armrest. The sight of 8 ships charging his armada filled him with something he had never felt before. Not contempt, not rage. Fear. Sergeant Major Kate Williams and her Marines stormed another Korak vessel. Bullets ripped through the defenders. The aliens coughed and staggered, their lungs failing under human microbes. "Push them back," Williams shouted. She fired point-blank into a commander's chest, dropping him in one blow. Minutes later, she stood on the enemy bridge, panting, helmet cracked, armor bloodied. "Another ship secured," she radioed. "Admiral, this one's ours." The captured cruiser opened fire, blasting into its former allies. But human sacrifices piled higher. The Frontier, already cracked and burning, took 3 direct hits. Lewis's crew screamed as alarms howled. "Captain," her engineer cried, "we're not gonna make it." Lewis's eyes burned with fire. "Then we'll make sure they don't either. Prep the explosives." The Frontier accelerated toward the Korak flagship. Weapons fire tore through her hull, splitting decks, but she never slowed. "Crew," Lewis said over comms, voice steady, "it's been an honor." The Frontier struck the flagship near its engines. Mining charges detonated in a chain reaction. The massive warship shuddered, crippled, power flickering. Lewis and her crew vanished in fire, but her sacrifice crippled the Dominion's mightiest ship. Admiral Sullivan gripped the rail as the Korak flagship reeled. His throat ached with grief. Sandra Lewis gone, Jake Morrison gone, almost his entire fleet gone. But their deaths lit fire in every survivor's heart. "All ships," Sullivan said, his voice low but firm, "press the attack. Don't stop now." Rodriguez hurled the Razor through the chaos, weaving between beams. His ship's engines screamed as he dove at a Korak destroyer. "Target engines," he barked. Lasers ripped into the destroyer's thrusters. It spun, colliding with another warship. Both ships erupted in fire. The Razor burst through the explosion, hull scorched, barely holding. Rodriguez whooped, voice raw with adrenaline, "We're not done yet." On the ground, Ambassador Kira Velthana clutched the rail of the command chamber. The feed showed fire everywhere, humans sacrificing themselves one after another. "Ambassador," her aide whispered, "other species are watching this battle. Already revolts are starting on Korak-occupied worlds. The galaxy is rising." Kira's silver eyes filled with tears. "The humans, they are dying for all of us." On the flagship, War Marshal Corvin staggered to his feet as systems died around him. His ship burned, engines crippled, weapons failing. "Marshal," his officer cried, "we must retreat. If we stay, we lose everything." Corvin's pride battled his terror. He had never retreated in his career. But now the galaxy was watching, and his crews whispered one word over and over, Deathworlders. He could not erase that word. He could not kill the idea it carried. "Order withdrawal," he said hoarsely. His officer stared, "Sir." "Order it," Corvin roared. On the Defiant, Commander White gasped. "Admiral, Korak ships are pulling back, multiple formations disengaging, they're retreating." Sullivan's fists clenched the rail. His heart thundered, could it be true? "Confirm," he rasped. Davis's voice broke with disbelief. "It's real, sir. The Dominion is running." The bridge erupted in cheers, but Sullivan remained silent. His fleet had won, but at a cost almost too great to bear. Of 23 ships, only 4 remained. The smoke of battle still hung over Sanctuary Prime. Broken hulks drifted through orbit, silent tombs lit by distant stars. Human and Korak wreckage spun together, twisted beyond recognition. Admiral Frank Sullivan stood on the scarred bridge of the UES Defiant. His ship burned in half a dozen places, plating torn, crew bloodied, yet it still lived. So did he. "Status," he croaked. Commander Nancy White's voice shook. "Admiral, we've confirmed. The Korak fleet is in full retreat. Survivors are scattering, some already jumped out of system." Sullivan's tired eyes dropped to the tactical map. Where once 200 red icons had threatened annihilation, fewer than 100 remained, all fleeing. The rest were gone, destroyed. "And us?" he asked. White swallowed hard. "4 ships left, sir. The Defiant, the Razor, the Hammerfall, and the captured Korak cruiser under Captain Williams." Sullivan closed his eyes. 23 had come. 19 were gone. On Sanctuary Prime below, the Zelani emerged from shelters. They gazed at the sky where wreckage still burned. Children pointed at glowing streaks. Adults wept openly. Ambassador Kira Velthana stood outside the emergency command chamber, her silver eyes glistening. She pressed her palms together in the old Zelani gesture of prayer. "They came," she whispered. "When no one else did, they came." Her aide approached, holding a data pad. "Ambassador, we're receiving transmissions from across the galaxy. The battle was broadcast everywhere. The Alaran Republic has declared the Dominion must be resisted. The Vex Confederation has pledged fleets. Dozens of smaller worlds are rising in rebellion." Kira's heart ached. "Because of the humans." Her aide nodded. "Because they proved the Dominion can bleed." On the Defiant, Sullivan sat before a transmission feed. The image of War Marshal Thex Corvin flickered across the damaged screen. The alien's once proud face was pale, lips pulled back in a snarl that no longer hid fear. "You humans," Corvin spat. "You are insane. You sacrifice yourselves without hesitation. You fight as if death means nothing." Sullivan's voice was hoarse but steady. "We don't fight because we don't fear death, Marshal. We fight because there are people worth dying for." Corvin's eyes narrowed. "This changes nothing. You've lost most of your fleet. Your strength is broken." The Admiral leaned closer, his bloodied face lit by firelight from sparking consoles. "No, Marshal, this changes everything. The galaxy has seen you beaten. The age of your terror is ending." Corvin hissed, then cut the transmission. His fleet vanished into faster-than-light shadows. Days later, the surviving humans walked the streets of Sanctuary Prime. The Zelani met them with awe. Gardens bloomed, fountains sang, children held flowers. Everywhere the humans went, silver-eyed aliens bowed or touched their palms together in gratitude. Captain Ben Rodriguez limped through the crowd, his arm in a sling, grinning at every cheer. "Never thought I'd be famous for being crazy." Dr. Amy Chen carried crates of medical supplies, helping Zelani doctors treat the wounded. Her tired smile held quiet pride. Sergeant Major Kate Williams marched with her Marines behind her, their battered armor marked with scars. The Zelani children reached for them as if they were legends come alive. And Admiral Sullivan, he simply walked, his eyes heavy with ghosts. A week later, a monument rose in Sanctuary's capital. Carved from local crystal and human steel, it stood tall in the central square. Names etched into the surface glittered in sunlight. At the very top, one name shone brightest, Captain Jake Morrison. Beneath it, the names of every crew lost. At the base, an inscription, carved in both English and Zelani script. "They heard our cry for help, and they answered." Kira Velthana placed flowers from the crystal gardens at the monument's base. Her hands trembled, tears streaming freely down her cheeks. Around her, thousands of Zelani bowed in silence. When she looked up, Admiral Sullivan stood beside her. His uniform was torn, his face scarred, but his eyes still burned with quiet fire. "Admiral," she whispered, "your people gave everything for us. Why, you owed us nothing." Sullivan gazed at the monument. "Because where I come from, Ambassador, evil wins when good people do nothing. We couldn't stand by, not this time." Her silver eyes shone with respect. "The galaxy will remember what you've done here." 6 months later, the Great Hall of Nexus Station was filled with voices. Representatives from 100 species crowded the chamber. For the first time in living memory, the galaxy was united, not in fear but in hope. Admiral Sullivan stood at the podium. his voice carrying across the chamber. "We didn't come to lead anyone. We don't want an empire. We don't want thrones. We only came because someone asked for help, and that's what civilized beings do." The Alaran ambassador rose. "Admiral Sullivan, humanity's sacrifice has inspired us all. We propose a mutual defense pact. 17 species already pledged their fleets. We would be honored if humanity leads this alliance." Sullivan shook his head slowly. "We don't want to lead. We just want to stand beside you, so that when the next call for help comes, and it will, none of us will be alone again." The chamber erupted in applause. On Sanctuary Prime, the monument grew larger with each passing week. More names were added, not only human, but alien rebels who joined the cause. It became a shrine, a symbol of defiance against tyranny. Children played in its shadow. Elders taught its story. And every Zelani child grew up knowing the name of Jake Morrison, Sandra Lewis, and the humans who had come from a distant, dangerous world to save them. In the quiet of the Defiance-ready room, Sullivan sat alone. He poured a glass of whiskey, staring out at the stars. His fleet was gone. His friends were dead. The galaxy was changing because of them, but the cost gnawed at him like an open wound. He raised the glass. To Jake, to Sandra, to all of them. He drank, the burn steadying his heart. Then his calm officer's voice crackled through. "Admiral, incoming transmission, another distress call, different system, different world." Sullivan closed his eyes. He was so tired, yet he already knew the answer. "Plot a course," he said softly. "If someone's asking for help, we're going." Across the galaxy, whispers spread. The Dominion was not invincible. The age of conquest was ending. A new age was beginning. The age of the Guardians, the Deathworlders who answered when no one else would. And the galaxy would never be the same.